Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today I'm coming to you all with a review for The Lost Daughter, written and directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal in her featured directorial debut, and starring Olivia Colman, Jessie, Buckley, and Dakota Johnson. Story-wise, the film is centered around Lita Caruso, a college professor whose vacation in Greece is disrupted when an unfortunate incident brings her into direct contact with a young woman and her daughter. But what begins as an unlikely bond between two vacationing women quickly shifts into a bizarre obsession that forces Lita to reckon with her hidden past and revisit her traumatic experience with motherhood. So, I am going to start with the pros. There are definitely some bright spots here. First, as I mentioned, this film is directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Many of you, or most of you, will be familiar with her as an actress. She starred in films like Donnie Darko, Mona Lisa's Smile, Secretary, and Sherry Baby. Oh, and a little film known as The Dark Knight. Maybe you've heard of it. And now, The Lost Daughter marks her foray into feature film directing. And as someone who always appreciates seeing women in the director's chair, I'm loving that we are seeing this huge surge in directorial debuts by women, especially in the past few years. There's Rose Glass with Saint Maud, Melina Matsoukas with Queen and Slim, Shannon Murphy with Baby Teeth, Olivia Wilde with Booksmart, Emerald Fennell with Promising Young Woman, Halle Berry with Bruised, Regina King with One Night in Miami, and Rebecca Hall with Passing, among others. Eve's Bayou is one of my all-time favorite films, and it was the first film growing up where I made the distinction that, hey, a woman directed this. And in this case, it was a black woman making her directorial debut, aka Cassie Lemons. With all that being said, I did appreciate Maggie Gyllenhaal's direction here. There's nothing too flashy, too edgy, or in your face about it, but it is very simple, very straightforward, and very effective. This is a beautifully shot film, and of course, having Greece as a backdrop absolutely helps. The performances are definitely the main highlight here, especially with Olivia Colman as our lead. I was first introduced to her in Murder on the Orient Express, and then The Favorite shortly afterwards, which is the film that won her the Best Actress Oscar for her portrayal of Queen Anne. I mean, what can you say? She always delivers, and this role is no different. Playing quiet, introspective characters can be really difficult to do because it means that you have to display inner conflict and turmoil in a way that's not showy or melodramatic. But I think Olivia Colman absolutely captures that with her performance. We also have Jessie Buckley, whose star is definitely on the rise. I was first introduced to her as Maria Bolkonskaya in the 2016 adaptation of Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, which I absolutely loved. I thought it was so well made, and even with so many great actors and performances, she absolutely stood out there. And she does the same here as the younger and more passionate Lita in the early stages of motherhood. Ironically enough, this is another acclaimed film that she's starring in that is being distributed by Netflix following 2020's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And seeing her here was a pleasant surprise because I didn't realize that she was involved with the film. But I think that her performance is a really solid parallel and complement to Olivia Colman's take on the character. If I'm being totally honest, I tend to be somewhat ambivalent to Dakota Johnson as an actress, especially considering her lead role in a rather unfortunate film trilogy that shall not be named. However, I did enjoy her in Bad Times at the El Royale, and I did appreciate her performance here. It's somewhat brief, so there's really not enough time for her to leave a big impact, yet and still, I was able to appreciate what she brought out with her performance. Lastly, I love the subtext of the story, especially with its deeper messaging about motherhood, especially when it comes down to the psychological ramifications of that. The regret, the frustration, the disconnect, the loss of identity. There's a lot that comes with that. And even as a man, I feel like I have gained so much awareness about parenthood in general, but especially about motherhood. I genuinely have a much greater understanding and empathy for anyone who undertakes that because It's not easy by any means. And I do appreciate how the story, to some extent, attempts to highlight that. All right, now I'm going to jump over to the cons. Now, there's not a bunch of them, but they are significant. So, first off, the runtime. This is at best a 90-minute to 100-minute film, and even 100 minutes might be too generous. But 121 minutes? Absolutely not. Unfortunately, there's just not enough here that justifies that runtime. I say that because story-wise, not a lot is happening. I do think that from the trailer and even the opening, I assumed I was getting some type of story in the vein of films like The Talented Mr. Ripley or Notes on a Scandal. Not so much. Now, let me reiterate that I am not somebody who needs a bunch of histrionics and melodrama and twists for a psychological story, even one like this, to work. I think the film really is at its best when we get into these interactions between the characters and we get this dialogue and we explore how they think and how they see life and how they connect with each other. In addition to this tension that is slowly building throughout. It doesn't matter that it's slow moving. That is not a problem for me as long as the substance is there. The problem is that there is not enough of that substance here. Instead, there is a lot of meandering, there's a lot of slogging along, and there's a lot of suspense building that ultimately goes nowhere. Which is unfortunate because there are some really compelling moments here that do actually hit home. But in the end, those few moments aren't enough and they don't add up to make this a satisfying film overall. So I'm going to give The Lost Daughter a C-. This is definitely a film that many of the cinema purists and loftier film viewers will be absolutely in love with. But for the casual viewer, or even the casual fan of Olivia Colman, they'll probably think The Lost Daughter should just stay lost. The Lost Daughter is currently streaming on Netflix. You guys feel free to check it out, leave your thoughts below, and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.